Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my Week 15 2019 NFL predictions. Well, for the Fanatic this week, it was one of my best weeks overall in terms of both against the spread and straight up picks. I am very happy with my results. So currently, this past week against the spread, I am 10-3-2 against the spread. And straight up, I am 10-5 overall. So it is great to have a double-digit week both ways. The reason how I got to 10-3-2 were that I took the Bengals to cover +8. They ended up losing the game 27-19, so that is an 8-point margin. And the Buccaneers ended up winning 38-35 in a thrilling game against the Indianapolis Colts with plenty of yards and turnovers, and they ended up winning by 3 as well. So those two games ended up being exact pushes on the lines I had. So with those two games being a push, the other 13 games I've had this week, I went 10-3 in my selections on the line, and also now that's how I got the 10-5 with the two differences in the losses there. So now overall for the year against the spread, I am now 111-93-3 through 206 games, which equals 54.4%, which is probably the best I have ever done against the spread, in the last few years. And now straight up, I am 130-76-1, which equals 63% even for my straight up picks. So those are very solid numbers. I'm very happy about the 54.5%. I'm hoping to get up to about 56-57%. That's usually around the range where you want with betting, around 56-57%. And straight up, I still have 3 weeks to go, so hopefully I can get up to 65-66%, which would be a tremendous year, in my opinion, with straight up picks. But overall, though, it was a pretty fundamental week with a lot of the picks that I made, with the Falcons beating the Panthers 40-20. Vic Beasley and I think it was Vic Beasley and Takk McKinley both had 2 sacks each. Matt Ryan threw a career-long touchdown pass, a 93-yard touchdown pass to the one rookie receiver. He has a very complicated last name. I'm not going to try to butcher his name for him, but that was impressive, and it was a nice all-around game for the Falcons, who have had a really rough year. I still think Dan Quinn is going to be fired, but at least you can see, since the Saints game, the Falcons have played more consistent football, and they've been able to be more competitive, especially with all the injuries they've had. But I thought that was pretty significant. With the Baltimore Ravens getting their 9th straight victory, the longest winning streak in franchise history, the Ravens have also clinched a playoff berth. They are the first AFC team to do that. Lamar Jackson became the second quarterback ever to have 1,000 rushing yards, only behind Michael Vick, and he, I believe, is only about 30 yards away from breaking Michael Vick's single-season record, which I believe he will do this Thursday against the New York Jets. But overall, it was a pretty impressive win for the Baltimore Ravens, though the Bills' defense hung around pretty well. They only held Lamar Jackson to 43 rushing yards. He was 18-25 for 145 yards, 3 TDs, and one of those passes was for 61 yards. So if you take that one pass away, he threw for under 120 yards passing against the Bills' defense through only 14 throws. So I thought that was pretty impressive. Though I do have to say, we had a really rough drive at the end there with with all the pass interference, the roughing the pass. That was a lot of undisciplined football there by the Baltimore Ravens in that regard. I feel like with the Buffalo Bills, they have nothing to be ashamed about, because I feel like they put up the best defensive effort besides San Francisco that you can have against the Ravens all year. But I just feel like with how the offense was going with Josh Allen really could not do anything for a majority of that game. There were a lot of 3rd and 10 deep bombs he missed. He got sacked several times. He was facing pressure consistently through the game. And if only maybe he gets a little bit better weapons over more time, maybe he could have been more competitive. But that's the breaks when you play the Ravens, the hottest team in the NFL right now. A few of the other quick notes that I took from the games yesterday. The Green Bay Packers, boy, are they not as good as I thought. I'll put it this way. I know they're 10-3, and technically right now they are the 2 seed since they have a better conference record than the Saints. But to play the Washington Redskins at home, and the fact that, again, kudos to Aaron Jones for having 130-plus yards. He got another rushing touchdown, which I believe keeps him still within the top range for rushing touchdowns all year. I think he's now like second or third in rushing touchdowns. Aaron Rodgers threw for another touchdown to Tonyan, the third-string tight end. But to keep the Redskins in that game, 20-15 when you were 13-point favorites, that was really concerning. And honestly, if Daniel Jones did not did not have 3 consecutive turnovers to the Giants, I think that they could have lost the Giants game could have been more competitive. So I look at the Green Bay Packers, and I just come out of that going, kudos for being the 2 seed, and you probably still can hold on to it. But looking at how everything's shaping up, I don't really have the confidence I have in, let's say, the Saints or the 49ers. They can go deeper into the postseason. And then when you look at I'll make 2 other mentions, 2 other games. With regards to San Francisco and New Orleans, that was one of the games of the year, if not the game of the year. I actually think it was better than the Seahawks-Niners game back in Week 8. I thought Week 8 or 9. I thought it was an incredible game. Jimmy Garoppolo throwing for over 360 yards, 4 TDs and a pick. Drew Brees accounting for 6 touchdowns. The fact that the New Orleans Saints scored touchdowns in their first 4 possessions was incredibly insane. The fact the Niners were able to withstand that and be able to take the lead, especially a 9-point lead, the 6-yard touchdown pass to Kendrick Bourne. And then Drew Brees, you would think when he threw that pass to Traquan Smith that, it was over. But they gave too much time. They had to go for the 2-point conversion. I didn't like the play, but I understood the decision. And then on the 4th and 2 call, Garoppolo throwing an easy out route to Kittle, and then Stanley Gardner-Johnson completely botching the tackle, and then taking Von Bell, Marcus Williams, and I forget the other guy. It took those 3 guys to try to tackle George Kittle, and then Marcus Williams, the Minneapolis Miracle defender, who's known to blow games over the years. No offense to Marcus Williams, but that is true. The guy that's known to blow games had a 15-yard face mask, which put Robbie Gould in a 30-yard field goal situation that got the Niners the victory. And with the Seahawks losing to the Rams in decisive fashion against to the Rams, the Seahawks losing, the Niners now are the clear number 1 seed, and all they have to do is win out to get the number 1 seed in the NFC. Incredible job by both teams. I would love to see just as much. I would love to see the Ravens and Niners in the Super Bowl, to have that NFC Championship rematch in San Francisco or New Orleans. I am game for either one of those in that instance. And then lastly, the Houston Texans and the Denver Broncos. That was really pathetic. I mean, how? And no offense to Drew Lock, who again he actually threw for the third most passing yards by a rookie quarterback in Denver history with his 327-yard day, 3 TDs and a pick. He was sensational. He threw all his touchdowns to tight ends. 2 to Noah Fant. 1 was to Jeff Hireman. I think he also threw that little out route pass to Royce Freeman. Job well done by Denver. Deshaun Watson had a fumble and 2 interceptions. He threw it 50 times because they really couldn't run the ball. But what a pathetic showing by the Houston Texans. And this is what I'm going to tell everybody about the Houston Texans. It's just so frustrating. And this was just kind of should have been surprising. The Houston Texans have become, Bill O'Brien and the Texans have become the Marvin Lewis Southern Bengals, except Bill O'Brien does have a playoff victory. But every time you want to put faith in this Houston Texans team, they put out an effort like that to where you don't really know how they're going to, that's where you lose all the faith, where they go back into pretenders. It was a brutal loss, and honestly, if it shapes up, and I know Texan fans are going to be all shocked about, or might be upset, and you can, if it ends up being the Buffalo Bills at the 5 seed they retain, and the Houston Texans at the 4 seed, I will take the Buffalo Bills right now over the Houston Texans. I believe the Buffalo Bills are a more consistent team. They have a good enough defense, and I think Sean McDermott will outcoach Bill O'Brien and get Bill O'Brien to lose for the 4th straight year, or, for the 4th time in the opening 4:25 Saturday afternoon wildcard game. Depending on how the Bills play, depending on if there's any injuries, I could see Houston winning, or if Houston looks somewhat better. But just after everything that I've seen out of Houston, that was just way too disappointing for that result to happen that way. So, sorry about that. So, and before I get into my picks, one last time, I am taking the New York Giants plus 8.5 tonight over the Philadelphia Eagles, but I have the Philadelphia Eagles winning the football game. All right, so time for my picks for this week. So on Thursday, the last Thursday night football game of the year, when the 5-8 New York Jets go to the 11-2 Baltimore Ravens, the Baltimore Ravens are 14.5-point favorites in this game. I like the Baltimore Ravens here, minus 14.5, and Baltimore straight up. Then the next game, when the 10-3 New England Patriots go to the 1-11 Cincinnati Bengals, the Cincinnati Bengals are 9.5-point underdogs in this game. I'm going to take New England to win here, but after what I've seen out of the Patriots, I'm going to take the Bengals here plus 9.5. Then the next game, when the 6-7 Tampa Bay Buccaneers go to the 3-9-1 Detroit Lions, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 4-point favorites in this game. I like Tampa Bay here minus 4, and Tampa Bay straight up. Then the next game, when the 7-6 Chicago Bears go to the 10-3 Green Bay Packers, the Green Bay Packers are 4.5-point favorites in this game. I like Green Bay here minus 4.5, and Green Bay straight up. Then the next game for first place in the AFC South, when the 8-5 Houston Texans go to the 8-5 Tennessee Titans. The Tennessee Titans are 3-point favorites in this game. With how bad Houston looked, I think they're going to play better. And these two teams have been so, even the last little bit. I'm actually going to hedge my bet here. So I'm going to take the Houston Texans to win, or I'm going to take the Houston Texans on the line here, plus 3, but I have the Tennessee Titans winning straight up. Then the next game, when the 5-8 Denver Broncos go to the 9-4 Kansas City Chiefs, the Kansas City Chiefs are 10-point favorites in this game. I like Kansas City here to win straight up, but I will take Denver plus 10. Then the next game, when the 3-10 Miami Dolphins go to the 2-11 or 3-10 New York Giants, the New York Giants are 3.5-point favorites in this game. This game is a really close game either way. But I'm going to take the Miami Dolphins here, plus 3.5. The only reason is I've seen the Dolphins play since their bye in week 4. Or ever since their bye after their first 4 games. They've looked better. And with the Giants, look, Daniel Jones is going to be out at least next week as well as tonight. And I just don't think, I think the Dolphins are just going to have a little more momentum. But I'd be surprised if the Giants won? No. But I'm going to take the Miami Dolphins here, plus 3, and the Miami Dolphins straight up. Then the next game, when the 6-7 or 5-8 Philadelphia Eagles go to the 3-10 Washington Redskins, the Philadelphia Eagles are 6-point favorites in this game. I like Philadelphia here to win straight up, but I'll take Washington plus 6. Then the next game, when the 10-3 Seattle Seahawks go to the 5-8 Carolina Panthers, the Seattle Seahawks are 6-point favorites in this game. I like Seattle here minus 6, and Seattle straight up. Then the next game, when the 4-9 Jacksonville Jaguars go to the 6-7 Oakland Raiders, the Oakland Raiders are 6-point favorites in this game. I like Oakland here minus 6, and Oakland straight up. Then the next game, when the 9-4 Minnesota Vikings go to the 5-8 Los Angeles Chargers, the Minnesota Vikings are 2.5-point favorites in this game. I like Minnesota here minus 2.5, and Minnesota straight up. Then the next game, when the 8-5 Los Angeles Rams go to the 6-7 Dallas Cowboys, amazingly the Dallas Cowboys are favored again. So I'm going to take the LA Rams here, and probably the line that everybody should jump on. I'm going to take the LA Rams here plus 2.5, and the LA Rams straight up. Then the next game, when the 4-9 Atlanta Falcons go to the 11-2 San Francisco 49ers. The San Francisco 49ers are 11-point favorites in this game. I like San Francisco here to win straight up, but I will take Atlanta plus 11. Then the next game, the Sunday Night Football game, when the 9-4 Buffalo Bills go to the 8-5 Pittsburgh Steelers, a battle of the two current wildcard teams right now. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 1.5-point favorites in this game. I like Buffalo here in an upset, so I'm going to take Buffalo here plus 1.5, and Buffalo straight up. And finally, in the Monday night game, when the 6-7 Indianapolis Colts go to the 10-3 New Orleans Saints, the New Orleans Saints are 9-point favorites in this game. I like New Orleans here, minus 9, and New Orleans straight up. All right, time for my thoughts on each game. the Baltimore Ravens over the New York Jets. This is a game where I am going to take the Ravens here because I feel like this is just a clear mismatch in terms of talent, in terms of discipline. When you look at how the Ravens have been playing, yeah, they haven't been their best over the last couple of weeks. We've played two really good defenses in the Bills and the Niners defense. We've been able to find ways to get victories. You look at the Ravens, they broke their franchise record for points. And you just look at this Ravens team, and it's on the hottest roll it's ever been. And you're looking at a Jets team who have won 4 of their last 5 games. Kudos to them. They beat the Dolphins. Out of the last 5 weeks, they've beaten the Giants, Redskins, Raiders, and Dolphins. I know it's not impressive, but they've won 4 of their last 5 games after starting out 1-7. And to me, I think one of the biggest things, though, why I'm taking the Ravens here is that I just feel like with the Jets, they were in a dogfight with the Dolphins. Jason Sanders, if he would have not missed that one kick, he would have tied an NFL record, or he would have tied or set an NFL record for the most field goals in a game with 8. The Miami Dolphins were one Sam Ficken 44-yard field goal away from pulling a 2016 Pittsburgh Steelers win where the Dolphins could not score a touchdown the entire game, but they were going to win it off a bunch of field goals, which again in some ways was positive, but also a little bit negative at the same time. But I look at the Ravens here. The Jets defense right now, it's an okay defense. It doesn't get a lot of interceptions. It's caused the 7th fewest interceptions in the league. It is the 2nd best rushing defense, which would be very interesting against Mark Ingram, Gus Edwards, Justice Hill, and Lamar. But also, we're playing one of the worst offenses in the league. They're 29th in points. They're 31st in yards. They have the 21st, or they have the 11th most turnovers offensively. I look at how the Jets' offense is. Robbie Anderson, Jamison Crowder, Ryan Griffin, not the most talented weapons. Le'Veon Bell was out yesterday due to an illness. I do think he will be back, but if he's out, that's going to mean Bilal Powell will get his 2nd straight start, which I'm not seeing a lot of things. And honestly, when you're playing the Ravens, I don't think a field goal fest will be able to work against the Baltimore Ravens. And if it does go to a kicking contest, I will take the Baltimore Ravens kicker, Justin Tucker, over Sam Ficken every day. When you look at the Jets, it's one of those things where they're out of playoff contention at this point. They're just trying to play spoiler. In some ways, you could say that's a good or bad thing. But when you look at this current history with the Ravens, it's been a pretty abysmal history for the Jets playing Baltimore. They have gone to Baltimore. Actually, here's a fun little stat, everybody. They have never come to Baltimore as the New York Jets since the Ravens have been around. They are 0-5 all time coming into Baltimore. They have never won a game in Baltimore. I believe also this would be Lamar Jackson's first ever Thursday night game. He's been one of the best quarterbacks in primetime football this year. Was sensational against New England. He was sensational against the Rams. I think he'll have another sensational game against the Jets. There was a little bit of me that was concerned about the line because I thought it was a little bit too much. But I feel like with the Ravens, even with Mark Andrews dealing with a knee injury which wasn't serious, I think Hayden Hurst and Nick Boyle can do enough offensively. And I just don't see with the Jets defense, especially with Jamal Adams being down with an ankle injury he suffered 2 weeks ago. I think the Ravens handle their business pretty decisively against the Jets team that is on a bit of a roll, but they haven't played a lot of great competition coming up to this point, and they also just lost a game just 2 weeks ago to the Bengals. When they play us, it will be a totally different story, and with that track record of what I said, 0-5 all-time in Baltimore, I think the Ravens pull off another victory to get to 6-0 against the Jets at home. Sounds like the Baltimore Ravens here minus 14.5, and the Baltimore Ravens straight up. The next game, the New England Patriots over the Cincinnati Bengals. This is one where you look at the Patriots, we'll put it this way, they will probably be the number 2 seed. And this is kind of the amazing thing about the Patriots, where if you look at how the Patriots have played, they will have 13-3, but they'll have 13 wins against sweeping the AFC East, which the only impressive thing was Buffalo. You want to say that, but they swept the AFC East. They swept the NFC East, which, again, is probably the worst division of football. They swept the AFC East, the NFC East. They beat three of the four teams in the AFC North, besides the one that's important. And it's just like you look at that 13-3 record and go, well, against the Texans who are in the playoffs, leading the AFC South, against the Chiefs who are in the playoffs, who won the AFC West for the fifth straight time. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, for the fourth straight time. The Chiefs who won it for the fourth straight time, and the Ravens, they have loss, and loss. Two of those weren't even really close for the most part. The third one was a really good game, or a really sloppy game. You know, I do sympathize with Pats fans who did get robbed off of two blown calls from the officials. Travis Kelce had a clear fumble. I don't know if Stephon Gilmore would have scored because Tyreek Hill was in front of him, and I think Tyreek Hill could catch Stephon Gilmore to make a tackle, but definitely on the N'Keal Harry touchdown, both his feet were still clearly in bounds, and that should have been a touchdown to make it 23-20. And that defense was sensational. It held Patrick Mahomes in that offense with all that talent to 3 points in the second half. For the first time in Patrick Mahomes' career, he threw an interception on the first drive of the game. But at the end of the day, Brady only threw for 165 yards. He had a touchdown and a pick to Bashaud Breeland, who made the game-winning fourth down incompletion to win the game. And the 21-game home streak for the Patriots was snapped. So when you look at it that way, this is one of those things with Cincinnati, who, after coming off a big win against the Browns, they let Denzel Ward get a pick six. They really couldn't move the ball. On take, I believe, got hurt again. Their tight end really couldn't do anything. And the Bengals are just the worst team in football. So for the Patriots, this should be, fairly easy to beat a Cincinnati team. And it's very odd how, very much like when the Patriots just a few years ago in 2014, they had played the Chiefs in a big game. They had lost, and they were on to Cincinnati, and they were 2-2 in their last four games. Just like this year, they're 2-2 in their last four games, with wins against the Eagles and the Cowboys, and losses against the Chiefs and the Texans. So now you're at this point where you're playing Cincinnati again, and I feel like with the Patriots, it should be an easy game. But the reason why I'm taking the Bengals on the line is, the Bengals, again, they're in this weird spot where they've been in basically every single game. And I just feel like with the Patriots, look, they've put up 16 against the Chiefs. They put up 22 against the Texans. They put up 13 against the Cowboys. They put up 17 against the Eagles. They put up 20 against the Ravens. They're not putting up a lot of points. And I think the Bengals defense, they've shown signs they can get pressure. They've been able to cause turnovers. And Joe Mixon has been running the football better. Joe Mixon, after not having a touchdown for majority of the year, Joe Mixon in his last 3 games, he scored 3 TDs in the last 4 games, and he's had 86 yards, 79 yards, and 146 yards. He's playing at a really good level right now. And I just think with this Patriots team, as great as it is, and I know they're not going to have much offensively, I just don't see them winning a 10-point game against the Bengals team, which has shown you all year that they can be competitive in situations. So, and I think, again, the Bengals look a little bit better than Washington right now. But I'm gonna take the Patriots here, obviously, because, again, they have the defense, they have the talent, and just the Bengals are just that bad that I don't think Andy Dalton really could do anything. But it's not going to be, a lot of people shouldn't be like, oh, they should blow them out like they did the Jets or they did the Redskins. They could do that, but from what I've seen, I just really don't know. And 9 points to me is way too much. Unless they get turnover touchdowns, which could happen. But I'm going to hope that, Andy Dalton and them do not, give them 1 or 2 turnover touchdowns or block punts. By the way, the Patriots have 4 block punts this year. That is, every other team in the league only has 1. And all 4 of those block punts ended up being touchdowns. So, unless the Bengals do what the Giants and the Jets did, where they just keep on turning it over, yeah, if that happens, I think the Patriots are going to, get a blowout. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think the Bengals, they can control the clock, and they can play competitively enough to keep this within 10 points. Look, Is this going to be a fun game? No, not really, because I think the Patriots obviously have a very significant advantage in this game, and it's just an easy game. But I do think that just with how the Patriots have been playing, I'm going to keep the Bengals in this game, because remember, 1-point loss to Seattle, a 6-point loss to Pittsburgh a couple weeks ago, a 4-point loss to Buffalo. This Bengals team has been in games. They have been in games and been competitive more often than not. And I just don't think against the Patriots right now, I could see the Patriots getting another blow. So that's why the New England Patriots hitter went straight up, but I'll take the Cincinnati Bengals, plus 9.5. The next game, the Buccaneers over to Detroit Lions. This one, I think it was, the reason why I took Tampa Bay is that I watched the Detroit Lions yesterday, and David Blau, after such a great performance against the Bears on Thanksgiving, he ends up playing like David Blau, and he was basically shut out the entire game until a garbage time offensive game, or until a garbage time score got them 20-7. When you look at David Blau's numbers, he was 24-40, 1 TD, 2 picks. He was sacked 5 times. And I really was disappointed in how the Lions played, though I am happy they scored the touchdown because the line was 13.5. I got the 13, so that counted. So when I look at the Detroit Lions here, I don't know if Stafford's going to be back. Honestly, at this point, the Lions are out of the playoffs. They're just trying to, get through the season. I wouldn't bring Stafford back. There's no point, especially with him having to play over the next 3 weeks. The Packers, the Vikings, and then I forget who they have. Oh, and the Broncos. Yeah, if playing those 3 teams, I wouldn't bring Stafford back for this purpose. They're just trying to get through the year at this point. And, yeah, it's a rough time. And you look at the Lions, they really couldn't run the ball. Again, Bo Scarborough had 65 yards rushing. None of their receivers really could do anything. And it was a really disappointing game because I actually thought the Lions were going to be more competitive against the Vikings than I thought. But the reason why I'm going to take Tampa here is that Tampa Bay has been on a good roll. Tampa Bay has this year, now they've won 4 of their last 5 games. They've looked good doing it. Jameis Winston had a Jameis Winston type game where every time you look at Jameis's arm and his talent, you see it and go, wow, this guy's sensational. But then you look at the end and go, well, he had 3 picks with 4 touchdowns and threw 474 yards. I actually believe he's leading the league in passing. Let me see here. I think he's leading the league in passing, and he's also leading the league in interceptions. Actually, him and Baker are 1 and 2 in interceptions this year. But from what I've seen out of Tampa Bay, I've been impressed with how they've been able to move the football. They've been able to get a good amount of pressure with sacks. Shaquille Barrett's having a career year. He's kind of cooled down a little bit over the last few weeks. But, when you look at Shaquille Barrett, he has a grand total of 15 sacks this year, which leads the league, which is, I think, an incredibly impressive feat. He's had 3.5 sacks over his last 3 games. And I'm just looking at the Buccaneers here, and even though Mike Evans probably will not play, you still have Chris Godwin, you still have Scott, you still have Scott something. He was the guy from Bowling Green. If someone could tell me the receiver that Tampa Bay has from Bowling Green. You still have him. You still have Cameron Braid, who made who made a nice contribution. Ronald Jones was able to run the ball effectively. And Jameis is just, that's the one thing I know about Jameis, is that David Blau, I don't know really what his skill set is. He kind of showed you a really good high, and then he showed you a really bad low, so you still don't know what's going to happen. But I know with Jameis I know that Jameis Winston, when you look at him, he'll give you turnovers. That's not a doubt. But he will, at the same time, he will be able to throw yards. He will be able to beat up this Lions defense, which has not been great this year. They are 24th in points scored. They're 29th in yards. They've given up the third most passing yards. They given up the 5th most passing touchdowns. and their running attack, they're a bad top 10 bad defense against the run as well. When you look at Jameis and them, I just feel like, again, the Bucs should be able to move the football on the Lions defense, even with Evans probably not there. And I think that's going to be the difference in the game. Could the Lions win this game? Sure, absolutely. I could totally see that. Because I just look at how, the Bucs play. And the Colts, for portions of yesterday, were playing pretty good football. Darius Leonard, an 80-yard pick six. Zach Pascal made a big touchdown catch. Jack Doyle made some nice catches. Marlon Mack had his first touchdown run. And, yeah, I think the Lions, with the talent they have, with Galladay, with Jones, with Amendola, with Bo Scarborough, they can move the ball on the Bucs defense. No doubt about it. But, Jameis here, 4,115 yards, 26 TDs, 23 picks. I just think the Bucs offense is just too explosive. I think the Bucs can just move the ball on the Lions defense. And I don't think David Blau and them, I don't think he'll be able to escape pressure from Barrett. And I think with the inexperience, I think Jameis will be able to bounce back, unlike David Blau will, in tough spots. And the Bucs, I believe, are going for their first 4-game winning streak since 2010, or maybe before then, or 2015. First 4-game winning streak, but I did not expect the Bucs to have this year. But I'm going to take the Bucs here because I trust their talent. Even when Jameis makes mistakes, I think the Lions won't be able to capitalize on them, and I just think the Lions defense is too bad to play this type of offense, and I think the Bucs win in a shootout, in a big game. So that's why I like Tampa Bay here -4 and Tampa Bay straight up. The next game, the Green Bay Packers over the Chicago Bears. This one, I'm going to take the Packers here because they're at home. I mentioned Aaron Jones earlier, and it just, to me, I think when it comes to it, that, look, the Bears have been great. They've won 3 in a row. They've won 4 of their last 5. They've kind of gained some confidence. They still have a chance in the playoff. Trubisky had his best rushing game of the year with that 60-plus yards and a touchdown on the 23-yard run that made him look like Lamar Jackson. But I look at the Green Bay Packers and Bears here, and I just go back to Week 1 and how ineffective Trubisky was. He had 2 interceptions in the game. He really couldn't move the ball. He really couldn't run the ball. And the Bears' offense, it's not like it's been, utterly fantastic. They also just said that Roquan Smith has a torn pec, so he'll be out for the rest of the year, which is a significant injury. Taylor Gabriel, Trubisky really wasn't able to get Gabriel a lot of big passes. They don't really have a tight end right now. Or they have Pasternecki and Javon Wims went down of an injury, and I think they still have Brand Hawker, there you go, back there. But I just look at this Packers team, and it's very much in the sense of where I know the Packers will be able to, get some pressure on Trubisky. They'll make him feel uncomfortable. And I just don't see what the Bears, even as competitive as they've been, as effective as they've been, they still have a top 5, they still have a top 5 defense in the league, which is amazing to me, knowing how ineffective the offense has been. It's kind of disappointing for Bears fans, especially after seeing Trubisky on Thursday. It's kind of like, where was this Trubisky all season when they needed him in these kind of games? And I wouldn't be surprised if the Bears covered the spread because I just, again, the Packers against the Redskins, that was completely underwhelming. But at the end of the day, when you look at Aaron Rodgers, he has 23 TDs, 2 picks. He's been on a good roll. Nothing spectacular, but maybe that's just a credit to Aaron Rodgers that his year, if guys like Russell Wilson and Lamar Jackson weren't having theirs, would be one of the best years you could have. Yeah, because he's completing 64% of his passes, 23 TDs, 2 picks. Actually, he could be on his way for his consecutive year of only throwing 2 interceptions through 16 games. But I'm going to take the Packers here because Trubisky's never beaten the Packers in Lambeau. And they've been on a roll with the Packers at home. Let me see here. Let's see, head-to-head with the Bears. They've won, I believe, like 7 of the last 8 at home. Let me see. So, when you look back at it, they have 1, 2, 3. So, they have won 4 of the last 5. Yeah, they've won 4 of the last 5 in Lambeau against this Bears team. The one loss they had was against Jay Cutler on Brett Favre's retirement night. And I just feel like, again, the Packers, the Bears have been on a good run. But let's be honest here. They swept the Detroit Lions, beat the Giants, and beat a reeling Cowboys team. They're playing a Packer team that is maybe not as convincing as they are. They've been a much better team all year. And I have confidence that the Green Bay Packers will pull off this victory in a very interesting game with a Bears team that has a little bit of confidence and an underwhelming Packers team that I think a lot of people are looking like pretenders. So that's why I like the Green Bay Packers here, minus 4.5, and the Green Bay Packers straight up. The next game, the Tennessee Titans over the Houston Texans. This is one where I looked at the Houston Texans and the Tennessee Titans, and to me, this is all going to come down to just home field advantage. I honestly thought after what I saw out of Houston beating New England and after what I've seen out of Tennessee, and Tennessee, by the way, they're 6-1 in their last 7 games. They're one of the hottest teams in the league. Derrick Henry had another 2-touchdown game. He scored 12 touchdowns this year. I think that's only behind second to Earl Campbell in his first couple of years, in his first 3 years for touchdowns with the franchise. But Ryan Tannehill's been sensational. I remember they said during the game that the Titans, for the first time in franchise history since they've been to Tennessee since '97, had a 350-yard plus passer, a 150-plus yard receiver, and a 100-plus yard running back in the same game. That has never happened, but it happened under Ryan Tannehill. A.J. Brown had two touchdowns and over 150 yards receiving, which was sensational. And I look at the Tennessee Titans here, and the biggest reason why I'm taking them is what I saw to the Houston Texans. Like, in this game, after what you saw to the Texans, getting 2 interceptions, getting Jera Atuchu getting the strip sack fumble there, and then Kareem Jackson, or giving it to Kareem Jackson to return, was pretty sensational. Drew Lock had a sensational game. And you just look at the Texans and went, they're inconsistent all the way around. And with the Titans over the last 7 weeks, they've been the same team pretty much every week. They've been able to put up 20 plus points. They've been able to put up 31.7 points per game. Their defense has been solid. After pretty much going into a back and forth game between the Raiders through the first half, and the second half it was 21-0 Titans. And I thought that was incredibly impressive. And I just look at the Texans right now and go, you don't really have a great defense. You really don't have a phenomenal pass rush. And I just don't trust Bill O'Brien in the situation. Like, going into Tennessee, I remember last year the Titans were able to pull off some victories against the Texans, or they were able to pull off a victory against the Texans at home. And I just kind of, when I look at like momentum and coaching and confidence, it's all leaning towards the Titans here in this game. Would I be surprised if the Houston Texans won this football game? No, not at all. I think the Houston Texans are they're a good team, and they've shown that they have talent. Definitely. Will Fuller was out of an injury. I don't know if he'll be able to play, which would be big again. But I think the Titans defense will be able to kind of hold the running game pretty effectively. Josh Jacobs didn't play yesterday for the Raiders, which was big. But I think with Carlos Hyde and Duke Johnson, I think that they can do an okay job containing their running game. The Texans really don't have a tight end to work with, and their offensive line's been banged up with injuries. Titus Howard's on the IR, so they have their backup right tackle in, and it's just a really messed up situation for the Texans, kind of more of injuries. The Titans have been able to manage their injuries better. I know they don't have Cameron Wake, and I know they don't have Malcolm Butler, and they don't have some other injuries, but I'm going to take the Titans here because they're at home. They've been a little more consistent offensively, and I know the Texans may have better offensive talent. They have the better quarterback. They have, the better, talent. I just think the Titans have more momentum. And from what I've seen, I'll take the Titans' momentum and coaching staff over the Houston Texans' talent in this game at home in this situation. It's going to be a good game, and honestly, I feel like the Texans should be able to win the division regardless if it comes down to it, where if it's going to be 1-1, they're both 9-6. They end up playing week 7. They both end up playing week. They both end up playing week 17 in Houston for the division. So I don't think the Texans are by any stretch of the imagination. But I feel like with the Titans in this one, I'll take the team with the momentum. They're at home, and they've just done a better role than the Texans have. So that's like the Houston Texans here +3, but the Tennessee Titans straight up. The next game, the Kansas City Chiefs over the Denver Broncos. I'm going to take the Kansas City Chiefs here just because as great as Denver has been, I kind of feel weird with Denver because you look at this 5-8 Denver team, and I've always said this over the year, they're actually a better team than 5-8. They're 3 kicks and a 20-point blown lead away from being 9-4 and competing for a wild card spot in the thick of things with everybody else. But when you look at Kansas City, Denver hasn't won in Kansas City, I believe, since Peyton's left. I think it's been pretty decisive in pretty much all those games. And I just, it's one of those things where the Chiefs' defense, it's been on a good roll the last three games. 17 points against the Chargers, 9 points against the Raiders, 16 points against the Patriots. I know you could say, well, look, Rivers turned it over 4 times. The Raiders are the Raiders, and they've just been a train wreck. They gave 42 points to the Titans. Yeah, I know that, but this is a Chiefs team that, look, they've won. Patrick Mahomes became the first quarterback under 25 to beat the Patriots at home since the first one to do it since 2000. It was the first time an AFC opponent had won a home game against the Patriots. Tom Brady and Edelman on the field at the same time. I know the Chiefs, they can't run the ball, and I think that's why I'm going with the Broncos +10, because they really cannot run the ball. Damian Williams is out of a rib injury. LaShawn McCoy, Darrell Williams, the other number 34, the one rookie they have, he really can't contribute. And I just really like how Denver's been playing, and I think Denver and everybody knows how you beat up this Chiefs team is through running the football. They have one of the worst run defense in the league, and when you have Phillip Lindsay and Royce Freeman running the football, I think they can do an effective job keeping Mahomes off the sidelines enough and letting Drew Lock, move, play his game. Noah Fant has a foot injury, which is minor, but also their one defensive end, Draymond Jones, he has an ankle sprain, but he'll likely go on to the IR, which is a little bit unfortunate for him because he got his first career interception just 2 weeks ago against the Chargers. But I am going to take the Kansas City Chiefs here because this is one of those things where, look, Denver's on a good roll. Denver may have finally found their first quarterback since Manning to kind of take that mantle, because the way he was able to dissect the Houston defense with Tim Patrick, Hireman, Cortland Sutton, Fant, Royce Freeman, the way he was able to move the ball up and down the field was absolutely sensational. He has a good amount of athleticism, and he's got some confidence in him to where you're like, you know what, after what he did against the Texans, it kind of rubs me a little bit the wrong way. When you have performances like that, you enjoy yourself out there. And I think, again, Denver, as weird as they are at 5-8, they are not as bad as their record indicates. And with Drew Lock, still getting, acclimated to the system, I don't know how much film the Chiefs have on him. And I think the Broncos can put up a much better fight than people think. So that's why I like the Kansas City Chiefs here to win straight up, but I will take Denver +10. The next game, the Miami Dolphins over the New York Giants. I am taking the Miami Dolphins here just because they've been on a better roll. This is a game where, look, the Giants, Eli Manning is going for trying to stop a 5-game losing streak against the Philadelphia Eagles. If he loses tonight, he will join Troy Aikman as the only quarterbacks in NFL history to have a 6-game losing streak against the Philadelphia Eagles or higher. But I just look at this game, and it's just something where, I know Eli's going to get the start, and that may, get the Dolphins a little more rattled. And it is Ryan Fitzpatrick who, threw another interception. But he also, look, he had an okay day on the ground. I believe he was the leading rusher for the Dolphins, which is never a good sign, especially with Ryan Fitzpatrick as your leading rusher. This isn't Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen. But I'm going to take the Dolphins here because they've been a better team. I know I won the Dolphins yesterday, and I got bit by, the Jets kicking a 44-yard field goal. I'll accept that. This time around, going up to the same exact place, we only just covered in blue. I just think the Dolphins have been the better team. I know the Giants are going to have their weapons, and I know I'm making this video before I've seen Eli Manning play an Eagles team, who the Dolphins beat, by the way. But I just like how the Dolphins have been playing. And I think that momentum and that camaraderie should be enough to get this victory. Yeah, because ever since their bye after the Chargers, they've had a 1-point loss, 10-point loss, 13-point loss, 8-point win, 4-point win, 17-point loss, 17-point loss, 6-point win, and 1-point loss. So they've been in 5 of their last, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11 games. They've been more competitive. And I just look at the Giants, and I don't see it. I know, look, I know for the Giants, it's a big moment. These are probably Eli's final games. He will likely have his last home game, possible, with the Dolphins. And maybe his last home game with the Eagles, who knows, the Dolphins are Eagles. And maybe the Giants will be motivated. But until I see what happens, and what I've seen out of Eli this year against the Cowboys and the Bills, I just don't think that he'll have enough to beat this Dolphins team, which is a little bit younger, it's a little more scrappy, it's a little more creative, and I just like Brian Flores also is a better coach than Pat Shurmur. I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Giants won this game. This is the cruddy toss-up game of the week, but I'm going to take the Dolphins here. I've seen more consistency out of the Dolphins compared to the Giants. So that's why I like the Miami Dolphins here, plus 3.5, and the Miami Dolphins straight up. The next game, the Philadelphia Eagles over the Washington Redskins. This is one where I watched them play week 1. They were able to be fantastic. I know Deshaun Jackson's not there, and a whole lot of other things have happened to the Eagles since then. But the Washington Redskins are the Washington Redskins. They have only won 2 home games over the last 2 years. The last time they were in Washington, Nick Foles beat up Josh Johnson, the fourth-string quarterback the Redskins had that year. I just think the Eagles know, with the Redskins being out of the playoffs, the Eagles are still fighting for the division, and all they have to do is beat up the division teams. They were able to beat up Washington pretty well. I know the Redskins surprised the Panthers, and I know the Redskins were competitive against Green Bay, but I just have to go with the Eagles because they have more talent, and with Geis being hurt, I don't know if, look, they have a bunch of, yesterday, I think they said they only had one rookie receiver. Ryan Kerrigan left the game. And this is one of those games where I think the Eagles, they just have to win this one. In order to get into the division, all they have to do is sweep the division, and they have it. But I'm going to take the Eagles here just because I feel like, again, it's the Redskins. As great as they've been, they still lost, and I feel like the Eagles can play a similar type game to win a close game. But I'm going to take Washington here plus 6 because I think the Redskins, look, in their last 3 games, they won off a Dustin Hopkins field goal. They beat the Panthers by 8 points. And they had a 5-point loss to the Packers in a game that nobody thought that should have been that close going into that late. But that's why I like the Philadelphia Eagles here to win straight up, but I will take Washington plus 6. The next game, the Seattle Seahawks over the Carolina Panthers. Russell Wilson has one of the best records all time after losing a game. He does not lose back-to-back games very often. I believe it's only happened 5 or 6 times in his career. When you look at the Seahawks, that was a brutal game. Jared Goff had a kind of field day doing rollouts, throwing to Higbee, throwing to Kupp, throwing to Robert Woods. Brandon Cooks got a donut, or Brandon Cooks had a donut in terms of his production. The only bright spot for the Seahawks they had was Quandre Diggs, who got interceptions on back-to-back drives. He's also the first Seahawks since Earl Thomas to have 3 interceptions in his first 4 games as a Seattle Seahawk. But this is a game where, with the Panthers, Greg Olsen has a concussion, and he probably won't go. The Seahawks won't have to worry about nearly as dynamic of a team. The only offensive weapon they have to worry about is Christian McCaffrey. Kyle Allen under 2 interceptions and a fumble. And this is also a team for Russell Wilson. He is 16-4 in his last 20 games on the East Coast. They're going for one of their best road records in franchise history, probably their best road record in franchise history. And this is a team in Carolina for Russell Wilson that he has had he's had a very successful time with. He usually, against the Carolina Panthers, he is 5-1 all time. He's also, I believe, he's 5-1. There we go. Yeah, he's 5-1 in 6 attempts. In those games, in the regular season, his only loss was in the 2015 year, in 2015 in that way, was against Carolina in Week 4. That was the Newton Olsen game down the seam. So Russell Wilson's never lost in Carolina in the regular season. He's only had 2 career losses against them. And I just think in the Seahawks, the Panthers have kind of unraveled. They fired Ron Rivera, which I could justify at the end of the season. I don't think he deserved to get fired in the middle of the season, especially with all the work he's done for the team over the years. But I'm going to take the Seahawks here. Look, they're motivated. They've been on a good roll. This loss was not good, and this loss probably knocks them out of getting the number 1 seed. They still can win the division if they win out, and beating the Panthers this week should be fairly easy, especially with kind of the limited offensive weapons they have. The confidence, the state of the Panthers right now is not great. And I just think the Seahawks are going to be able to pull out this victory to get the 7-1 at home, one of the best road records they've had in franchise history, and have 2 big home games against division opponents to determine if they can get the number 2 seed in the NFC, if it all turns out. So that's why I like Seattle here -6 and Seattle straight up. The next game. The Oakland Raiders over the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is one where I've seen the Jaguars, and this is all I have to know. The Jaguars are the first team since 1987 to have 5 straight losses by 17 or more points. This team right now cannot do anything. This team is just dreadful in basically all phases of the game. Austin Eckler was the second player in Charger franchise history to have 100 scrimmage yards, 200 scrimmage yards, 100 rushing, 100 passing. He also did, I believe, in 11 snaps, which is one of the quickest routes to get there. The Chargers scored on all 6 of their first possessions. And I've seen the Raiders, and yes, they haven't looked good over the last 3 weeks, but that game against the Titans, that first half against the Titans was anything more I've seen out of the Jaguars over the last 3 or 4 games to give me enough confidence to pick them. And also the Raiders are at home. This is the final home game for the Oakland Raiders in Oakland, so they're going to be amped up, they're going to be motivated, and they're playing a Jags team right now that is reeling in all assets. They're going to be selling everybody except Nick Foles. I think Doug Marrone's gone. Tom Coughlin's probably leaving. Boyer's probably gone. Campbell's probably gone. This team is just trying to shred out at the end of the year, and I just don't have any confidence in them, especially after a stat like that. I'll take the Raiders here -6 pretty easily. And also, Jackson was having to go out to Oakland. I'll look this up right now. Let's see. Let's look at head-to-head. The Jaguars are 500 against the Raiders all time. But the last time they went out to Oakland, the last time they won in Oakland was January 2nd, 2005. That was the last time the Raiders went out to Oakland and won. So they haven't won in Oakland in over 14, 15 years. And so I think, again, Raiders have been more consistent. Raiders have more talent. And the Raiders have something to play for to send the Raider fans out in Oakland happy with their final game. So that's why I'll take the Oakland Raiders here -6 and the Oakland Raiders straight up. Then the next game. The Cleveland Browns over the Arizona Cardinals. This is one where, I wasn't really impressed with how the Browns, played, except for Nick Chubb, who had another 100-yard game. He joins Jim Brown, I believe they said, for the most rushing yards for the team's first 2 seasons. in Browns history. So, job well done to him. When you look at the Cleveland defense, they got Andy Dalton on a pick. They got a good amount of pressure. Njoku came back. But the biggest reason why I'm taking the Browns is that I've seen the Cardinals. And that Cardinals defense is awful. And Kyler Murray, as effective as they were, David Johnson got his first touchdown pass since week 6 of last year. I have to take the Browns here because I just feel like, again, the Cardinals, they've shown you that they can be competitive, but they'll somehow mess it up. And I feel like with the Browns, who have the talent, the Cardinals, Kyler had a clear running touchdown lane, but he decided to throw an interception to TJ Watt. He threw 2 more to Joe Hayden. Fitzgerald, he's been able to keep his consecutive games of a catch alive, but the tight ends really haven't been able to do that much. The offensive line has caused Kyler Murray to be one of the most sacked quarterbacks in the league, going up against the Browns' defensive line with Olivier Vernon, Sheldon Richardson, Joe Schobert, and all those other assets. I feel like the Browns should be able to pull this off. It's really not going to be that much of a home advantage either. When you look at that crowd on Sunday, the Steelers dominated most of the fans that were there. And I just think, again, Cleveland right now, they're on a little bit of a roll. They can get back to 500. It's also the first time since 2001-2002 that they have consecutive 6-win seasons. And this is the first season that they've had where they've won a division game against every single one of their opponents, which was stunning. But I'm going to take the Browns. More talent, a little bit more confidence. And I feel like, again, the Browns are playing for something. The Cardinals are just trying to play it at the end. So that's all. Like Cleveland here, -2.5, and Cleveland straight up. The next game, the Vikings over the Chargers. Look, kudos to the Chargers. I found out this amazing stat. The Chargers were 4-8, but they had outscored their opponents by 3 points to get to that record, where the Jaguars had lost by a plus-minus of -78. That's just downright amazing to me that through 12 games, the Chargers have actually had a higher point differential that ended up being 4-8. But that was against the Jags, and that was a 50-50 game. This is a Vikings team that routinely has been able to play well. Kirk Cousins, he has not had the best success record going out west. I believe as a Viking, he has... I don't think he's won out in the West Coast, I believe. He didn't beat the Rams. He hasn't played Oakland yet, and he hasn't played the Niners as a Viking. But I know he's gone to Seattle both times and lost, so I don't think he's won on the West Coast as a Viking. And I know his last time in Los Angeles to play the Chargers, he lost that game as well. But I'm going to take the Vikings here just because I feel like they're the better team, and the Vikings are not going to show up like the Jags and get blown out quickly. And from what I've seen out of the Vikings against quality competition, they should be able to pull this one out against a Charger team that, will put up a fight because, again, all 8 of their losses have been by 8 points or less. But I think, again, the Vikings are just going to be a little bit too much talented. I think Cousins pulls it out, especially with Adam Thielen hopefully coming back for the team. So that's like the Minnesota Vikings here, -2.5, and the Minnesota Vikings straight up. The next game, the Rams over the Cowboys. The LA Rams have kind of been a bit of a roll. They've blew out the Cardinals, and they won a decisive game against the Seahawks 28-12. And Jared Goff has never lost to the Cowboys in his career in both the games he's played them in. And the Cowboys, they haven't beat the Rams, or they haven't beat the Rams in the last couple tries. And the Rams have just been the better team. Like the Rams, they're an above 500 team. Dallas this year has not been the team above 500. And they're playing a Rams team which has found their confidence. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs because they still have to play the Niners, which that loss will knock them out. But this Rams team's been on a roll that the Cowboys have not been able to find. Do I think the Cowboys can make it competitive? Sure, to an extent if they can get pressure on Jared Goff. But they won 4 straight games without having a turnover. And the one turnover they got from Jordan Lewis ended up being on the 1-yard line, which did not help at all. But I'm going to take the Rams here. I'm surprised it's an underdog play, actually, because I just feel like, again, the LA Rams are just the better team. They're above 500, and the Cowboys have shown you all year they can't beat above 500 football teams. So that's like the LA Rams here, +2.5, and the LA Rams straight up. The next game, the Atlanta Falcons over the San Francisco 49ers. I'm taking the the San Francisco 49ers. The San Francisco 49ers over the Atlanta Falcons. I'm taking San Francisco here because they are the best team in the NFC by far, and I honestly do not have confidence in. I do not have confidence in Atlanta, especially with Calvin Ridley going down. That they can go out west and be able to win this game. However, I'm going to take the Falcons on the line because though the Niners won the game, Dee Ford went out with a hamstring injury, Richard Sherman went out with a hamstring injury. You had a few other injuries on the Niners, which are going to be significant in this game. And I just think that the Falcons, with all their offensive talent back, with the confidence they have nothing to lose. I think they'll actually put up a fight against the Niners in a good enough game that I think will be under 11 points, even with Calvin Ridley going down. So that's why I like Atlanta here, plus 11, but I'll take San Francisco 49ers straight up. And then finally, the last two games, the Bills over the Steelers. This is one where it's tough. I know the Bills and the Steelers have the home field advantage. The Steelers have been fantastic at home all year. But this is one where I'm going to take the better quarterback, and I'll take Josh Allen over Duck Hodges. Look, Devlin Hodges, his 3 wins over 3 number 1 picks, Phillip Rivers, Kyler Murray, and Baker Mayfield, or 3 first-round picks. Sensational job by him and them, to get to this point. Mike Tomlin's definitely a Coach of the Year candidate, but I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills here because I believe in this game, with both defenses playing well, with both running games being beat up, Juju Smith-Schuster should come back, which I think should be a X factor for the game. But in this game, I'll take Josh Allen and his experience and his play going up into a place like Pittsburgh against Devlin Hodges and his 4th career start against probably the best defense he has played the entire year. So that's all I like the Buffalo Bills here, plus 1.5, and the Buffalo Bills straight up. And finally, the New Orleans Saints over the Indianapolis Colts. I am taking the New Orleans Saints here because the Indianapolis Colts, Adam Vinatieri's going to go on the IR. Kudos to Jack Doyle for re-signing an extension. But that defense just is too banged up. And they're playing a Saints team that's ticked off, that's irritated. Monday Night Football record, it's been stellar under Drew Brees. And it's a rematch from Super Bowl 44. Super Bowl 44 from the 2009 season. And the Saints are going to be motivated. They're going to want probably maybe a Jacoby Brissett, Marshawn Lattimore, Tracy Porter, Reggie Wayne Memorial pick 6, which may happen. I just think, again, the Saints, they're ticked off. They've been the better team. They know that, they wasted one of Drew Brees' best performances of the year. And I just think with the Colts, with all their injuries and with the lack of kind of offensive weapons they have left, especially if T.Y. can't go, I don't think they can win a shootout, unlike the Niners, in the Superdome. Should be an interesting game, but I think the Saints, look, they're angry, they're motivated, they're playing a Colt team that's just kind of scrapping around now to try to, maybe make the playoffs. They're probably not, due to their schedule, but I'll take the Saints here -9, just because I have just a lot of confidence in the anger and talent of this team going up against the injured Colt team that's just kind of limping its way to the end of the season right now. So those are my thoughts, comments, and predictions for this week. Like, comment, rate, subscribe. Please check out the NFL YouTube Prognosticators page. There are plenty of great people like Gioknows, Halfmoon Picks, Bridgewater's Finest, Redzone Rosano, the Electric Football Show, Leighton Harmon, Doug Bartlett, Rob's college predictions, all those guys and gals that make predictions every week like I do. Please check out their channels and the page. And until next week for Week 16, this is Matt the NFL Fanatic signing off. Until next time, so long.